Right. I didn't realize my mic was muted, so let me take that again. So my name is Bukola Shiwoloratuga, and I'm so excited to have you here today. Today is the um, a public holiday in Nigeria, and this is the fifth edition of the Accelerate Your Career Growth webinar series. I'm very excited to be doing this with all of you and the speakers that we have. Today's theme is very interesting. I have titled this Adaptive Leadership in a VUCA World. And I know you may be wondering, what exactly does that mean? Okay, so let me break it down for you. Adaptive leadership is a leadership model developed by two people, Ronald A. Ivesitt and Marty Linsky. And it differs from traditional leadership slightly because traditional leadership often focuses on maintaining stability and addressing known problems. Adaptive leadership, on the other hand, it's about addressing complex challenges and leading organizations through continuous adaptation and transformation. And I'm sure you will agree with me that in today's fast-paced and ever-changing world, leaders are dealing with very unprecedented challenges. I mean, talk about the war in Ukraine and everything that is going on around the world, the volatile markets, the uncertain political climates, complex organizational structures, ambiguous decision-making processes. The modern workplace has become anything but predictable. And that's where adaptive leadership comes in. For me, I think that adaptive leadership is about more than just reacting to change. I think it's about embracing the change and leveraging it as an opportunity for growth and guiding your career through very uncertain times with confidence and clarity. I think it's about being agile, innovative, and resilient in the face of whatever the challenges may be. And let me tell you, I think that there's never been a better time for adaptive leadership than now, especially because of what is going on around the world and in the world of work, with the volatility, the uncertainty, the ambiguity, and the complexity of the world of work, and people constantly navigating uncharted waters. So many things are happening that have perhaps not happened before, or in maybe like 2 decades. I mean, who could have thought that there could be a pandemic in our lifetime? I mean, we could have thought, but I mean, we had to deal with that 4 years ago. So in all of this, it's time for leaders and even professionals, if you ask me, to be adaptive, to take those principles of adaptive leadership to navigate these uncertain times. So whether you're a recent graduate or you're a seasoned professional like some of us and some of the speakers here today, the principles of adaptive leadership, if you ask me, apply to us all. Today we have a lineup of incredible speakers. I'm very excited about the lineup today. Speakers who will share their insights, their experiences, and the strategies that they think that you can deploy to thrive in this very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world of work. They will give us real world examples. They will share practical tips and techniques that will help you walk away from this webinar with a newfound sense of confidence and clarity about how to lead adaptively in your own life and career in this new world of work. So I invite you to sit back, relax, and get ready to learn. I'll be right back. Right. It's good to be back. So, without much ado and without wasting too much of our time, I'm going to start talking about our guests for today. So, I'm going to start with Carol. Carol is my sister and my friend, and I'm going to try to read a very intimidating profile. You know, for me to feel intimidated, then you should be ready to be intimidated today. So, Carol, yes. Carol is an expert in digital transformation, organizational culture change, and enterprise agile coach. She applies her extensive project development expertise to enable organizational transformation using disruptive technology, change management, DEI, agility, and robust strategy execution skills. She believes strongly in entrepreneurship and empowering individuals and teams with the skills and mindset that will transform the organization from within. Outside work, she pursues a passion for community work through her role in various nonprofits and professional communities. She's the director of memberships for the Agile Practitioners Association of Nigeria and President Power Woman Network. She has excelled in male dominated roles for over 2 decades and believes women are most adaptive and creative once they tap into their innate strengths and attributes. She's a sought after speaker at local and international conferences and has been featured as a top 100 career woman in Africa 2023 by 9 to 5 Chick. She also loves journaling, coaching, and mentoring professionals seeking to transition careers into technology and project management. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Carol Arigi B.
Hi, Coach BSO. Hello, everyone, and
Hi,
happy
hi.
holidays.
Yes.
Good to be here.
So I'm very excited. See, this your agile coaching something. It's going to come in handy today. So please just wait for me. I'm coming for you today.
I've been forewarned.
Yeah, I'm just giving you warning. So just hold on. I'm coming back. I'll be right back. So our next speaker, I'm going to be bringing up the only gentleman in our midst, so that we will be inclusive. Eh? Let us bring him up next. Mo. Mo is an inclusive man. You know, we're still in March, so we're oppressing you this men in our lives. So Mo, it's good to have you. So now I'm going to try to read Mo's profile. Mo is a top performance coach. That one I can say that one in my sleep. I don't need to read profile to know that one. He's a certified life coach and management consultant. He's also a motivational speaker, and I can assure you are going to see that part of him today. You know, there's something that makes it come up all the time. And brand strategist. He's the principal consultant, Top Performance Academy, a capacity-driven organization that provides executive coaching and people empowerment services. He's a graduate of communication and media at Crowder University, executive strategy program, Lagos Business School, and certified management specialist, London Institute of Management. He's a member of Life Coaches Association of Nigeria. He's a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultant. He has delivered trainings for NLNG, KPMG, Senate Bank, Nigerian Export Processing Zone Authority, Bank of Industry, just to mention a few. He's highly sought after by the media. He has been interviewed on Channels TV, NTA Super Screen, Now FM, and Mainland 98.3 on issues of personal success and leadership. He's a recipient of numerous awards, including the New Africa 100 Young Exceptional Africans recognition. He's the author of Now That's Business, a book that provides practical walkthroughs on brand positioning and selling strategy for emerging entrepreneurs. Mo Oladapo is my friend, is my brother, and I am very excited that he agreed to join us today. Mo is an inclusive man. He likes to, everything that concerns the women, he takes it very seriously. So I'm sure that's why he couldn't refuse me. And I targeted you. This is the month of women, so I knew that if I asked you this month, you would not say no. So that's why I asked you. It's good to have you. Thank you for coming. And the last person I'm going to be bringing up today, our last speaker, she's by no means the least, is my friend, my classmate. I mean, I've known her for, the last time we were talking, and she was talking about her son. I said, you should tell him that I knew him before he was even conceived. So I've known her since university. I mean, she was my classmate in the University of Ibadan, the first and the best. If you don't agree, I don't know. But we're still the first and we're the best. She's a lawyer like me. And then just like me, she has another interest. She's an HR generalist. And I think one of the reasons that I'm very happy that Oyinkan is joining us today is because this is perhaps our first time doing this, right? And I literally kind of dragged her here, kicking and screaming, insisting that she must do this. And that's because she has embodied the principles of adaptive leadership in the last 12 months or even less. I say that because this is Oyinkan that has just come back into the world of work after being away for so long, and she has integrated herself in so well. I am so impressed. So right now I feel like I'm having a proud coach moment that she's here. And I'm so excited that she's going to be part of this conversation. Let me read her profile so that you know that, we're lawyers, we're learned. And because of that, we can learn anything. We know plenty things. We can do so many things. So let me just rub that in a little. I'm coming. So Oyinkan, right. Where did I put that? Yes. So Oyinkan is a seasoned legal practitioner based in Lagos, Nigeria, with a passion for conflict resolution and human resources management. She has a diverse background in law and mediation. She brings a unique perspective to her role as both a legal advisor and a mediator. After obtaining her law degree from the University of Ibadan, she honed her skills through various internships and clerkships, gaining valuable experience in both corporate law and alternative dispute resolution. Recognizing the need for effective conflict resolution mechanisms in the workplace, Oyinkan pursued additional training in mediation from the International Mediation Institute. In her capacity as a mediator, Oyinkan helps parties in conflicts reach mutually acceptable resolutions, fostering understanding and cooperation even in the most contentious situations. In addition to her work as a mediator, Oyinkan also serves as an HR generalist, advising organizations on a wide range of employment-related matters, from drafting employment contracts to implementing different initiatives. Oyinkan is committed to creating positive change within organizations and community alike. With her expertise in law, mediation, and HR, she continues to make a meaningful impact in the legal and corporate landscape of Lagos and beyond. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are our speakers for today. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we will get right into the conversation. I'm really excited about this conversation we're about to have. And so let's take a short break, and we'll be right back. Right. Welcome back. So we're going right into the conversation. And like I said, we're going to be examining the adaptive leadership principles and how they apply in this very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, and even perhaps very, very dynamic um, and disruptive world of work. And to start the conversation, I'm going to be talking to Oyinkan, and maybe because she was the last person I introduced, but Oyinkan, so my first question for you is, I mean, given the background that I gave earlier, in your experience, how have you seen the principles of adaptive leadership applied to deal with the complexities of this our very unstable, very uncertain, very volatile, very complex, disruptive world of work? How have you seen it? How have you seen the
Okay.
principles play out?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for the privilege to speak. Um, I don't think there's anything that's disruptive of what has happened in the last few years, especially with COVID. There was so much that happened, and I think that epitomizes how one has to be quick on one's feet. One has to think very quickly and finding solutions. So I think honesty is the first thing. You have to accept where you are and then take it from there. In the process of accepting that this is where you are, it forces you to look at solutions to the problem. It's just like a mathematical equation. It's inside that equation that you find the solution to the problem. It's inside that equation that you find the tools they are going to use to solve the problem. So that's what I would say. Honesty about where you
When you say being honest about where you are, it just reminds me of the conversation I was having with Carol this just before we started. And we understand that the national grid has collapsed again, so there's no power. And when I woke up to see that this morning, I'm like, okay, so what am I going to do? I have a webinar, and how am I going to deal with that? And then I'm home alone with my son, and I'm thinking, okay, because I think. So I had this conversation with my son this morning, and we usually have those conversations when I want to have this kind of sessions. I'm like, Obalulua, mommy has a class this morning, so you will have to take your tablet and go in the room and stay there until I come get you. And he says, okay, that's fine. So just before we started, he woke up from a nap and then he asked me, mommy, are you starting your class now? And I'm saying, yes, please take your tab and go. So you have to really, I mean, that's God's honest truth. You have to accept the situation. There is power outage, perhaps all over the country. What can I do? I mean, I can't send out emails and say, oh, we're not going to do this anymore. No, we have to go on. What can I do? How can I go on with what I already planned to do? How can I adapt to the situation? How can I, you know, stay on top of this situation and still come out looking like, okay, I mean, I'm not denying that there's a problem. I'm just saying that, okay, in spite of this challenge, there has to be something that I can do to ensure that I still show up. And that brings me to my second question for you, Inko, and which is that as a lawyer, right, and an HR
are.
professional, how do you balance the need for stability and consistency with the demands of agility and adaptability? So, you have to, there's the need for you to be stable and consistent. It's like showing up on social media regularly, consistency. And then you have to be agile and adapt. Okay, I can't show up today. What can I do? Can I try to show up tomorrow? Right? I didn't make that post yesterday. What can I do? Can I still post it tomorrow? So, how do you balance that, especially as a lawyer and an HR practitioner?
Okay, I'm glad you raised the issue of posting because I know you hound me on that regularly. But in looking at this, I think first of all, your vision has to be clear. Your vision and your values, they need to be clear. Once those are clear, you use that as an anchor. The second thing I would say is that you must have structure. Even if you're going to adapt because of things that are thrown your way, you must have structure. Structure to me, I interpret it as the backbone of everything. It's like a skeleton of a human form. You have the body, you have the skeleton. Without that skeleton, there's nothing to build on, there's nothing to rest on. So you must have structure. When you have structure, even when you have things thrown your way, even when things happen, you have something to start from. So it's your foundation. Another thing I would say is that you must have empowered teams. Teamwork is so essential in this VUCA world, or VUCA universe, as I call it, that we're in. You don't know it all. You can't do it all. So you must have an empowered team. You must allow your team to work. Another thing that I would say is that you must have effective communication. You must have continuous learning culture. Coming back to the workspace after being away for quite a while, I've found that I've had to learn quite a lot, and that has helped me. So you have to have an open mind to learn and pick up on things, and you must be agile in your thinking. You must be ready to navigate whatever is thrown your way. And finally, I would say you must have an eagle perspective. What I mean by that is that you need to be able to have your vision, but not just your vision. You must be able to see beyond what is before you so that you can accommodate what is coming, so that you can accommodate what you're not prepared for. When you have structure, you can deal with whatever comes your way. You can adapt to whatever comes your way. So, and lastly, you must have technology integration. We live in a time where technology is moving at such a fast pace, and there's a lot. You're just learning one, another one comes out. So you have to have that mindset that whatever is coming your way that is going to enhance your skills in terms of technology, you shouldn't put it aside. You must embrace it and you must implement it positively. So those are my views.
Thank you. You know, you mentioned agile, and that's just reminds me that we have an agile coach here. So what are we doing, sir? Let me just put that on the spot. So, Carol, talking about agility. Let's talk about agility. I mean, when I was researching the adaptive leadership principles, I'm like, okay, this looks a lot like, we have to be agile, we have to be resilient, we have to be. Are the principles not similar? Like, don't they, is there a point where they merge? Are there principles, are there agile principles that you can also apply to this adaptive leadership that we're talking about? Do you want to expatiate on that?
Right. Thank you, Coach Bieso, and thanks to everyone for this platform. So, yes, I see that there are a lot of similarities between adaptive leadership and agile leadership. And funny enough, Agile is a set of practices and principles that are based on certain values. And those values arose from an awareness that, as leaders, we have to act in different ways in different situations. So there's no one size fits all approach that a leader should take in a given situation. It could vary from person to person and from situation to situation. So there was this model by called the Sinafin framework by someone called David Snowden. And the whole concept was the fact that you have different situations and there are different ways that leaders need to approach. So you could have what you call, there were four domains that were identified. So you have the obvious domain, right? Or the domain that is very obvious, the domain of best practice. Your people already know what to do because they're already best practice and lay down principles for you to apply in such situations, right? Then you have the domain of the complicated. So where you bring in experts, people that know what to do or how to sort of adjust the obvious principles and create something new to meet up with that emerging situation. Then you also have the complex domain where you apply emergent practices. So as you are going and you're as you're going through that situation, you are using emergent practices to apply. And finally, you have the chaotic where there is no playbook, right? And that is exactly where iterative practices like agile emerged from, because there's some domains where you're not quite sure what is happening at that point. The end game is not clear. You haven't gotten a full grasp of that situation. So just like we see in as we defined as VUCA, right? Volatile, uncertain, ambiguous. At that point, the situation is ambiguous. You can't even define the problem that you're facing. You just know there's a situation and you have to find a solution, right? So the whole idea of that is, Agile came from that, and it's built on four basic values. And the first one is interactions, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And that ties very closely with some of the adaptive leadership principles, such as being development, one of the key ones, development and also organizational justice. What that means, sorry, organizational justice and emotional intelligence, rather. So, those are the two key principles of adaptive leadership that sort of align very closely with that first agile value. What it means is that, as a leader in an adaptive situation, you need to have a heightened sense of emotional intelligence. You need to be able to read people and how they react in such situations. Also, read yourself, right? And say, okay, how do I react in this kind of situation? Am I showing up in the right way to lead the team? Am I showing up in the right way that would help the organization thrive or find a quick solution to this problem? So, that heightened level of self awareness that allows you to be emotionally intelligent is very important in an adaptive situation. And when you talk about organizational justice, it talks about the culture of the organization. What is the organization's culture to change to realities, right? And to tough situations and challenging situations? How does the organization react to it? Is the organization itself resilient or adaptable when those things come, or do things just grind to a halt? So, for example, a perfect example for me of adaptive leadership is the case of Dr. Stella Adedivo. We may remember her from the Ebola crisis. She was the physician that was on ground when the first case called Patient Zero, Patrick Sawyer, came into Nigeria, and he was admitted in a hospital, and she immediately noticed that it displayed symptoms. The question is, how did she know? That was because she was well read and she was knowledgeable. One of the traits of an adaptive leader is seeking knowledge, right? You have to be someone that you're always looking for how to get information on what you
Mm-hmm.
need when situations arise. So she displayed that. The second thing she displayed was courage, and that's another key aspect of adaptive leadership. You must be able to act in times of challenges. You must be able to act based on those principles that you hold there, and let those principles provide you with the, should I say, the courage or the boldness to push
Mm-hmm.
forward despite the
Oh,
challenging situations.
yeah.
So I think there's just so many, interplays between adaptive leadership and agile. There are just a lot of cases. But for me, those key things really stood out from the story of Dr. Adadevo. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. So, I mean, just taking it from where you stopped, I think what the highlight for me is resilience, emotional intelligence, and being, you can't be averse to change. It's taking it from something Oyinkon mentioned with the way technology is moving very fast. I mean, I'm sorry for you if you are not trying to catch up, because just before you finish learning about one, another one has come up. I mean, remember last year, and the rave about AI generated pictures and stuff like that. But now we have moved from that. It's even gone to the point where AI can actually make you speak languages that you've not learned. So AI can translate this session, this video of me speaking English into French, and it would be using my voice. So you need to be able to very nimble, like you're moving very fast because the world is really moving. Things are so, you know, things are changing so fast. So it's easy to get to that point where you feel like, can we even catch our breath at all? But the truth of the matter is, the way the world is moving, you have to necessarily try to play catch up. And in playing catch up, it requires a lot of agility. It requires you not being averse to change. Like Oyinkan said, you have to accept the reality that, okay, this is my new reality. Things have changed. The world is moving. So, I mean, don't stay in the past. You have to come into the present. And when you apply those principles as a professional, even though adaptive leadership is for leaders, they say, okay, it helps them to deal with this very volatile world, dealing with this very volatile world. I think that as professionals in the workplace, whether you're just starting or you're a mid-level manager, you can also apply those principles to how you work. That is the only way, as far as I'm concerned, that you're going to stay on the radar. That's how you're going to stay relevant. That's how you're going to make sure that, anyhow this thing goes, you're always important and valuable. You're always an important chip, in the whole puzzle for the organization. So, and that brings me to the man that talks about top performance. That's Mo. So now we have talked about agile principles a little. We've talked about how Oyinkan applied some of the adaptive principles, and because we now know that there's some form of alignment between agile principles and the adaptive leadership principles. We saw how Oyinkan applied that to get back into the world of work after so many years away. So now let's talk about how these principles cannot just help us to stay in the game, but help us to stay at the top of the game. So that's why I'm bringing this man that talks about top performance a lot. You should come and tell us how he has used adaptive principles to help his clients, help professionals to achieve top performance at work.
Thank you, Coach. Such an honor to be here, and happy Good Friday to everyone. I'm so privileged to be here at this webinar, and kudos to our two speakers who have brought fresh perspective to this theme. Um, I would just also want to just talk from the angle of top performance as a coach who helps people to improve their performance. I will start by saying that change is constant, but the way we have seen change over the last 2 decades, it tells us that the evolution of change itself has increased. If you would go back to the 1970s and 1980s, but you
I
will notice
think
that in the last 2 decades or thereabouts, change has been on a faster pace. This means that it will have a direct or indirect implication or impact on the performance of people, especially as professionals on their job and in life in general. This means that people must meet or must be able to produce a performance at the rate at which change is coming. And don't forget, when we talk about adaptive leadership, we are talking about being in a state where you are able to respond to unforeseen change, as it comes. And this means that we must be in a state where we can able to lead and inspire ourselves to, to take the necessary actions to meet up with the change that is coming. Now, here is the problem, and here is, how I feel professionals must be able to use this adaptive leadership skills. One of the key problems is that when change comes, people are quick to rush into changing their performance. It's usually a performance issue, but they are unable to understand that your performance is a combination of the three states, within yourself. And if you don't tackle them from the first, second, and third, your performance will always look the same or will even dwindle. So here's the first. Performance is first spiritual. So if you're going to respond to change, you're going to respond to change first from the spiritual. And then when I say spiritual, many people are forced to think religion. No, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about your true being. We are all spirits. And this comes from the place of the heart. So we use the heart to define our spirit man, right? It's very important that when there are changes that comes, usually what changes does is that changes impacts the way we see ourselves. Sometimes it changes, what we know about ourselves. And when what you know about yourself begins to change, or you're confused about your identity, what happens is that your performance begins to change. Your performance begins to get poorer and poorer. Many times it's not that the individual is that change that has come to conflict with the understanding of who they are. So the first thing is that you must drive your performance from the place of understanding who you are. Now again, you are not your performance. You are not your performance. Your current performance is only a proof or an enforcement of the current understanding of who you are. And so when there are changes that come and you are trying to produce a performance, please understand that that performance you're trying to produce must come from a place of your current understanding. The moment a man understands who he is, he's able to perform despite the change that comes. I mean, if you have watched the cartoon Kung Fu Panda, you will remember that in the Kung Fu Panda story, the bear all along has always been the how did I call it? He has always been the warrior, or the chosen one. But there was a knowing, there was an understanding he needed to possess in order to produce that performance. If you remember, there was a particular scroll that it was said had all the powers, that if he got that scroll and he opened that scroll would give him all the power to become, the chosen one. But at the end, we found out that the scroll was empty. So it was not about the scroll. The scroll didn't have the power to make him. They only wanted him to believe that he was the chosen one. So your performance comes from the place of knowing. It comes from the place of identity. Secondly, your performance is also psychological. It's not just spiritual. It comes from a place of the mind. So what happens is that when changes come, when you settle it in your spiritual man, within your heart, what happens is that your mind begins to feed off. Your mind begins to feed off from your heart. If you are a person who understands who you are and you are unshaken in that understanding, what happens is that your mind begins to interpret it, because your mind is a neutral ground. Your mind only feeds off from the abundance of the heart, and that's what the Bible says: guard your heart, because out of it comes, the issues of life. There's this scripture that says, as a man thinketh, so he is. Let me help some people understand that scripture. When it says, as a man thinketh, so he is, in other words, it's saying, when you see how a man thinks, that is how he is in the spiritual realm. That is how he is in his heart. That is his current level of understanding of who he is and how he understands it from the place of his heart. All right. So the mind does one job. The mind feeds off the heart and begins to interpret it. Now, your performance is physical. When you see people's performance as a career professional, what it tells you is that their physical performance is an instruction given to them from the mind, and what is in the mind is what the mind understood that is coming from the heart. So when we're talking about adaptive leadership, we are seeing people being able to respond to change because they're able to drive change not just from the physical perspective, but from the place of knowing who they are, from the place of interpreting life circumstances the way they want it to, from the place of knowing who they are, and they're able to do, in other words, they're able to give the commensurate physical performance that usually meets and even surpasses the need for the change that has come. And that's how professionals can, respond to these things using adaptive leadership skills.
So now, you see, when I was saying motivational speaker before, I said that person usually finds a way to come out of more. I don't know how he does it, but that person, It's like me. There was a post I made, I think, last week, and it's about dealing with self-doubt. And one of the things I recommended was that you create a separate persona. You have to create an alter ego for yourself. And for me, that's the Coach BSO. Me, Bukola, I don't like to socialize. I don't go to parties. I mean, you will really not really catch me dead doing this. But for me to be able to do this, I have to get a persona, somebody different from Bukola, and that's Coach BSO. So please, this is Coach BSO talking to you. If you see Bukola on the road, you would definitely not think this is her. I can tell you that. So that motivational person persona is in Mo, and it always comes up all the time. And I think what's most instructive about what you said, Mo, is the fact that all of this actually starts in our mind. The performance thing starts in our mind, and I think it's very instructive. And that's why, for me, I'm very careful what I feed my mind. So when I was reading something today, and somebody was saying, or even my husband was sending me information, oh, the dollar is now, and I said to him, I am not monitoring that story. I'm not interested. I'm just wondering what's wrong with this woman, because I'm very careful what I feed my mind. I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to be fearful. I don't want to live in anxiety. I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to, feel like the world is coming to an end, even if it is, right? So it's important to me what I allow inside of me, because what I allow inside of me is what determines what comes out of me. And it's the same thing with these adaptive leadership principles. You say the principle says I should be resilient. It says I should be emotionally intelligent. How can I be resilient? Then I have to feed myself with the right information. I have to feed myself with information that will help my mind to understand that this situation is not, it doesn't define me. My performance is not me, like you said. Okay, that I didn't do well this time doesn't mean I'm a failure. It's just that I didn't get it right this time. I didn't do that thing right. It doesn't mean that I am not right, right? So it determines what I put into my mind, what I allow into my mind, what I allow my eyes to see, what I allow my ears to hear, because all those things determine how I interpret what is going on around me. So it starts with your mind. What are you feeding your mind? Are you feeding your mind with information that allows you to be resilient? Are you feeding your mind with information that allows you to be emotionally intelligent? Like, are you interpreting the situation properly because of the information that you have in your mind? I don't think too many professionals pay attention to that. I don't think they're very particular about what they feed their mind. I think for them, it's just about, okay, I can do the work. But doing the work starts with your mind, right? It starts with telling yourself, I can actually do this. This is not as difficult as it looks, right? If you can conquer it in your mind, if you can actually finish the work in your mind, I think doing it really with your hands is the least of the job, is the list of the work. I have seen it work a lot of times. It's like when I was going to write my book, I had to finish that book in my mind. In fact, this webinar, I have finished this in my mind like 2 weeks ago. This morning, I have rehearsed it. I have seen how everybody showed up, how the whole thing went. And, I am just coming here to actualize it. I finished it in my mind. So I completely agree with you that it starts with the mind. And I'm sure you're going to tell us about the other two parts of this thing. But before we do that, so that I do not let all the energy come out at the same time, I'm going to take the conversation away, and I'm going back to Yiko now, just so that, I can ask her one last question. But before we do that, let me just take a short break, and we will be right back. Right. Welcome back. So, Oinko, so
Yeah.
my question for you, and I think you kind of alluded to it from the last question you answered, and it's very simple. So, what advice do you have for professionals who want to enhance their adaptive leadership skills? Are there any specific strategies or practices that you find particularly effective? I know you mentioned structure, you were very emphatic about that. You have to have a structure, because that's the foundation of everything. It's like the skeleton that you now build everything else on. So, what other strategies or um, practices do you find particularly effective that you would recommend to professionals who want to enhance their adaptive leadership skills?
Okay, well, for me, like you've mentioned, coming back into the workspace after taking a break for so many years, I've had to adapt quite a bit because I've come back into an environment that I didn't. What I've come back into is not what I left. I left an environment where things were done a bit differently, and I've come back into one that is one technology driven. Two, there's a lot of disruption in the workspace, and so I've come back into that. One of the things that has helped me a lot is this issue of having your goals and your vision very clear. Sometimes you may not have the full picture, but you have what you want to achieve, and you write it down. At least that's what I did. And then in the process of acting on what I had written down, I began to flesh it out. I began to expand it. Um, I went from just facing what I wanted to do to me being here on this platform speaking. It's out of my comfort zone. It's not something that I would normally do, but I also know that it's also an offshoot of having a goal from the beginning. So, what does this do? Yes, I'm having a conversation with you, who happens to be my friend. I've met two other people, so I have expanded my community. I have been put in an ecosystem that I ordinarily would not be part of, and that all stems from me having that vision of growth this year. So for me, each year I have a vision, I have a theme that I run with, and that's what I did last year. I read a book called I think it's a 12-week year where you divide the year into quarters and just assume that that's just, a few weeks in the year and you have what you achieve. So that has helped me. Execution of what I want to do has helped me as well. How do I do what I want to do? How do I execute this vision, these goals? I write them down. I have a path that I have to follow to be able to execute them and the tools needed to be able to achieve these things. Another thing that I have done is continuous learning. In talking of the theme for this year, my own theme for this year is silent growth. I believe growth is silent. And so all the energy is driven into learning, into expanding, and so that at the right time, one is able to blossom. So these are the things that I would advise. These are things that have worked for me. I don't think I can give advice outside of what I have experienced.
Yeah.
So that's it really for me. In this
Wow.
in this time that I've come back to the workspace.
Fantastic. I mean, talking about vision, writing down your goals and vision, it starts with the mind. You see it first
Yeah,
in your mind. This is what I want to do. This is who I want to become. This is where I want to be at the end of 2024. And then, you start working on it. And but, like you said, you have to be agile. You have to, I mean, this was not part of the plan at the beginning of the year, right? But this came along and you just plugged into it because in some way it helps you to achieve some part of your goal. It helps you to,
yeah,
do something that you
yeah.
intended to do at the beginning of the year. But when you were writing it down, you obviously did not write, okay, I'm going to speak at BSO's
No, I did
event.
not.
All right. So I mean, it just brings it all home and it kind of like explains how the adaptive leadership principles really just work for everybody that wants to thrive, not just survive in these very unstable times, very uncertain times, very volatile times. You have to have a plan, but along the way, you have to recognize the fact that things can change. You might not be able to actually go according to that plan, but you know where you're going. If you said you were going to go like this and it turns out that okay, this way gets you there faster, you're not going to insist that because I said I was going to go like this is how I'm going to go, because times are changing, right? Because I remember when I first told you, okay, madam, you're going to speak, and she says, BSO has started. Oh, she ran away and then she came back. Are you serious? I said, but you say you're an HR generalist now. Because you know what I tell some of my mentees and coaches is that be careful what you put on your LinkedIn profile, because if you say you are something, you better be it. So that when they come for you, you're not going to start murmuring or stuttering. You have to actually be the person that you say that you are. So I said, you say you're an HR generalist now. Oh yeah, come and talk about it. So you have an experience, you have a story, and you know that those are some of the things that adaptive leadership teaches us: resilience,
Mm.
agility. Like it's like what Carol said, the agile principles and the adaptive leadership, they're so aligned. There's so many things that it's like the people that started this adaptive leadership is maybe they read the principles in agile principles, and then just came up with something. Igbo people, they do a lot of things, but I'm not saying it, so I'm not the one. I'm just saying that because when I was researching, I'm like, there's so much similarities. So let the agile coach come and tell us why is it like that, and why are professionals not applying these principles? They're so relatable, if you ask me. They're so easy to understand, and they're so realistic. Because if you're asking me to be resilient, if you're asking me to be emotionally intelligent, if you're asking me to continuously pursue learning, in other words, I have to keep developing myself so that when something changes, I am able to plug in and just keep moving. I don't see why. I don't know why professionals are not plugging into those principles. Maybe because they were created for leaders, and people always feel like if they don't have a position, they are not a leader. So maybe that's why. Or Carol, what do you think?
Well, I think it ties to it in its own way, because as you said, people forget that once you're influencing others, you automatically become a leader. And there's this concept of people thinking that leaders are born, they are not made, right? But that myth has been broken by so many people. We find out that a lot of people that were adaptive leaders in history, you have people like Mahatma Gandhi, Rosa Parks, all of them were people that were, leaders that emerged from the situations and circumstances. They were, like, should I say, forged in the fire. So they took the leadership mantle, nobody gave it to them. They took that leadership mantle because they wanted to effect change. And it all started from that passion of change that they were trying to drive, make a change in their generation at that point in time. So I think one of the first things that affects people is the fact that they feel um, leaders are born that adaptive leaders are born that way. No, you can actually build those skills, all the skills we've talked about today, being resilient, emotional intelligence, being adaptive, learning technologies, being knowledgeable about your craft. All of those are skills that you can develop today and develop on your own or with support from others. People like Coach BSO are there for you. They can show you how, to adapt some of those skills. So that's the first, I think, mindset that we need to change here. We've been talking a lot about mindsets, and that's the first one we need to change, right? You can build adaptive leadership skills wherever you are. You don't have to be born with those predispositions. You can, acquire them. The second thing I think holds people back is the fact that they feel adaptive leaders are extroverts, right? They feel that you have to have extroverted traits before you can be an adaptive leader. But I mean, again, that myth has also been broken. So you look at people like Stella Adadebo that I mentioned, or Martin Luther King Jr. A lot of them were classic introverts, but they use those introverted personalities in the end incorporated into their leadership styles. So you can be an introvert, an extrovert, whatever, whatever traits you have, you can be an adaptive leader. You don't need to be, the most obvious or noisy one in the room, as they say, to be able to make that difference. And I think the third one is, do we think that an adaptive leadership style is effective in every situation? What I would say to that is that you need to incorporate adaptability into whatever leadership style you are demonstrating. So whether you are, a persuasive leader, you're a participative leader, in fact, adaptive leadership thrives and agile thrives on participation. You need to be able to bring all the people together, all the people with the right skills, the right traits to work together with you to achieve that big audacious goal you want to achieve, either as a career professional or as a leader in an organization. You need others. So like Oyenko has mentioned today, she had Coach BSO on her case, reminding her you have to do this and do that. And that's what, pushed her forward into what she's seeing that she's achieving her goal today. So we all need people. We're not islands. So whatever strategy or style of leadership you have, you need to layer in adaptability into it. I think that the only formula for a successful leader is adaptability in these day and times. For you to be successful, you have to be adaptable. It's not negotiable in any way or form.
I agree. I agree. Adaptability is not negotiable. You cannot negotiate it. If you are going to survive and
Right,
then thrive in
right,
this world
exactly.
though that we are now, you have to be adaptable. You have to learn adaptability. You have to be resilient. You have to be agile. You have to be intelligent. You have to understand that you cannot remain the way you were yesterday. The person you were yesterday is still today. I
Exactly.
mean, that person you were yesterday is not what today needs. Today needs a new version of you. So you have to consistently reinvent yourself. I think
Mhm.
that's the word. You have to consistently reinvent yourself. There has to be a consistent and a consciousness about reinvention. You have to consistently reinvent yourself. So now let's let me bring Mo up. And the question I want to ask Mo is about the mindset. Is about the mindset that people now need. I mean, we've dealt about the misconceptions. Carol has, the first misconception is that okay, adaptive leadership skills is for leaders. I'm not a leader. I'm not a manager. I'm not the CEO. So why do I need to practice adaptive leadership principles? But the truth of the matter is, everybody is a leader, and those principles are not particular to leaders. If you look at those principles, they are principles that everyone can apply. Everyone can implement them and get the same results that leaders get. So, and if we come from the premise that leaders are not necessarily people that have positions, leaders are not born, like Carol said, leaders are made. Everybody is a leader in their own right. Everybody first starts by leading themselves before they lead others. What are those mindsets that that professionals can leverage, those mindset shifts that professionals can leverage to build resilience, right? Which I think is extremely important. I mean, we have established that adaptability is non-negotiable, and for me, the only thing that can help you to keep adapting and reinventing yourself is to imbibe the spirit of resilience, that spirit that helps you to keep bouncing back no matter what happens. Okay, so I didn't get it the first time. I'm going to try again. That's not never give up spirit. That spirit that always bounces back. What is the kind of mindset that professionals need to build that resilience so that they can thrive in the face of all this uncertainty and consistent change?
Thank you once again. I'm just enjoying all the uh, responses from all the other speakers, and I'm truly getting a lot of All right, are we back?
The internet was playing tricks. So yes, we're back.
Hear me? So I can just continue. Am I audible? Yes, I'm audible. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so I recommend two things. Yeah, I can recommend two things. Okay, so let me just go straight in to help professionals shift to the point where they're able to use adaptive leadership skills and to improve their performance. Number one, I recommend proactive personal disruption. I believe that for an individual to constantly shift themselves, they need to practice what I call personal disruption. So, what we see is that people wait until change comes to disrupt their lives and to disrupt their performance to the point that it takes them off balance and they take a while before they can regain their balance. So, what I teach people is that you must be able to proactively identify unforeseen circumstances that may threaten your performance and begin to practice disruption. That means disrupt yourself enough and as many times as possible that will build personal capacity and resilience. You will find out that the issue of resilience is not from the point of desire, is from the point of lack of capacity. It's not that people don't want to be resilient when in the face of challenges, is that they have not built the requisite capacity over time, because resilience requires capacity. Resilience requires strength. And so what we see that professionals are not disrupting themselves enough. So what do I mean by disrupting yourself? Because a lot of the times we are very comfortable in what we do that we forget that there are many things that could come to disrupt or to change that line, that flow, that pattern that could take us off our comfort zone. So before those things come, we must be able to proactively design what I will call um, a, a a simulation where we are in a scenario where if these things happen, this is what I will do, this is what I will change, this is what I will shift. So, for example, if you are, of course, you are trying to climb the career ladder in your organization, and you're always waiting for your organization to, to bring up trainings and bring up initiatives that you participate in, that time of waiting can be very detrimental. So what I advise people to do that you must occupy yourself with things that usually will disrupt you so that you can learn adaptive methods of coping with change, right? Learn adaptive methods that we can to cope with so that when the real scenario comes up, you have the capacity to respond appropriately. So I think personal disruption is lacking, and that's one of the things that can help people to shift into a new level of performance. Number two is what I want to call performance memory. So let me just explain what I mean by performance memory. So you see, we are in a mindset or we are in a mental state, especially professionals, where we have developed what I would call a neurological path to a performance. This means that there's a certain performance that we have gotten used to, and we know one, two, three things to do to produce the performance. And in turn, this has created a performance memory where you just know what to do, you just know where to look for, you just know the file to open, you just know who to call, you just know what to remove, you just know what to add, you just know what to adjust, and that is good. But if you are perpetually in that mindset where you are operating only based on your performance memory and you are not disrupting yourself enough, what happens is that when change, what we are seeing in the VUCA world, when change comes, your performance memory is not enough to match up with the change, because as I said in the beginning, change is coming at a faster pace. And when change comes, it brings new threats, new opportunities. New threatening opportunities will require new thinking. Now, what you have stored in your performance memory cannot measure up to that new threat. It cannot measure up to that new change. So what happens is that when in the time of our personal disruption, we are constantly updating our performance memory. In other words, we are creating new paths to our desired performance in anticipation of change, unforeseen change that might come. So professionals must constantly be in a mindset where they are disrupting their performance memory, where they're updating and say, listen, if this happened, this is what I'm going to do. If this happened, this is what I'm going to do. I will not rely on what I did last year that got me this result. I'm going to create scenarios and I'm going to create new pathways that I can do things. So now we are thinking about AI. AI has come, artificial intelligence. Some people are stuck in the old ways of getting results. Why? Because they were not anticipating enough unforeseen change, and because they were relying on their performance memory. So, two states of mind, two mindset professional must have. Number one is personal disruption. You must have a mindset that constantly disrupts your personal mindset, shifts it all the time, so that you are versatile, so that you are able to bend to new things that are happening. And two, you are able to update your performance memory so that you can deliver on new changes and new platforms with new thinking styles.
Sumo, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in, but you are going to continue. I mean, this thing you just said, it kind of reminds me of something that I saw today. So there's this professional who was on LinkedIn, and it was like a rant. She had been applying for jobs and she had been getting automated rejection emails. So she had come to rant about, oh, can you guys just update your automation so that I don't get, I mean, one rejection email is enough. I mean, why am I getting several rejection emails from the same organization? You know, it's interesting what I read into that post. And in commenting on that post, this is what I said. I said, well, hang in there, but what about if you start doing something so that instead of you chasing after them, they start coming to look for you? So, and you see, the truth of the matter is a lot of professionals are like that. They have been so used to doing the work that they've forgotten what is going on outside, that there is an outside world, that there is stuff going on outside there. And that in this world, you can actually make them come look for you. They can actually come and add onto you. You don't have to apply for the work. You don't have to go chasing after the job. So she's coming from that place. I mean, it was like just what Oyinka said. The last time she was in the world of work compared to now, it's so different. But she had to adapt. She had to quickly adjust so that she could, thrive in this new world of work. So this person is coming from the place of where you apply and then you expect a response. But the way I saw it is, I mean, the world has moved. You have so much experience, you have so much value. Why are you waiting for them to tell you, okay, we're going to take you? Why don't you make them chase after you? Why don't you start something? Maybe you start posting about the work that you have been doing so far or that you have done in the past few years so that they come look after you. I mean, so they come look, chasing after you. That is the way I saw it. But she was looking at it about why, and that talks about your proactive personal disruption. I think personal disruption has not been updated. Has not been updated because there's a disruption in the world, right? And from where she's coming from, I mean, if it were me, I don't want to be in the place where I'm waiting for anybody to respond to my email. I want to be the person waiting for you to write me and say, okay, we saw you on LinkedIn. And I've got so many things like that in my LinkedIn DM. People sending me emails. Oh, please, can you come and speak? I don't go looking for speaking engagements. I'm sorry. It's not pride, but I'm just saying that I have positioned myself in such a way, and it's because there's a proactive personal disruption. I'm always telling myself, Bukola, this version of me, the 2023 version of me, cannot work in 2024. It's just not going to work,
At all.
right? It's going to work. It's a different version of me that is going to work. When I asked Oyinka for a review for my book last year, she sent me the review, and then the next thing she said, so we're waiting for the next one. I'm like, I've not even finished writing this one. You're already asking for a next one. I say, yes, now you have to write the next one because you cannot finish this one like this, or this one cannot end like this. She's already pushed me forward. And then, interestingly, I made a post this week, and when I was thinking about it, I said, I have an idea for my next book. I already know what I'm going to write. So I am consistently disrupting my mind, the way I'm thinking. I'm
That's
consistently saying to myself that no, this version of me is not enough. I'm a constant disruptor. I'm always looking for where the trouble is. Like, maybe it's the lawyer blood that's working. But I have to consistently make sure that I'm in tune with the times. I am I am that person that fits into the mold part time. So you're not looking at the BSO of last year. No, this version of BSO is totally different. And by the time I start talking about this new book I'm going to write, you really laugh because the idea is very interesting and almost crazy. But it is the truth. So I like the way you described it. We have to consistently, update our personal. What did you call it again?
performance
Let me
memory.
correct it. Thank you. Oh yeah, continue from there. But I just have.
Oh my goodness. So basically, um, when these two mindsets are in place, first of all, we are constantly, because the truth is that we can't build resilience when there isn't constant disruption. I remember one time my mom, I told her I took a particular drug. I don't know if it was Panadol or something, or one drug was that. And she said, "Oh, do you know that every time you keep taking this drug, um, I don't know what you called it. That's I mean the germs or the bacteria are getting more resilient. That every time you take this drug and you take this drug and you're taking and then you're abusing the drug, so to say, that the bacteria become resilient to the drug such that the drug does not work anymore. So what I'm trying to say is, in this time and age where people are giving up and then they're throwing in the towel, cope with the changes that are happening, it's only a reflection or a proof that they haven't been giving themselves to constant disruption. So I advise professionals, I say, listen, don't be very comfortable with what you're doing because you are getting results. Now, make sure that you're also exposing yourself to bodies of knowledge from different resources that are new knowledge all the time. And this way you are building resilience. And then the second is that, performance memory is so key that a lot of the times when people are, do you know, have you ever been to a place where it's like, you are due for that place, so to say, but that experience, that network has not received you in the sense of the word. Okay, so let me give you an example. You are promoted to a place of leadership in your organization, and the first task that they give you, you are trying to use the last memory of your performance to achieve that task, and it's not working. And people begin to look at you and think that you're not performing, you are not competent. No, it's not that the individual is not competent. The individual is only trying to rely on their last performance memory. And this is because this individual, they're not, and they're not able to, prepare for unforeseen circumstances where their status could change, their responsibilities can change, what the organization requires from them can change. And this way, performance memory, instead of it being an advantage, it becomes a disadvantage. And so what we try to teach individuals is that you must always look back at how you do things. So I help people to create a performance model, so to say. How do you arrive at a particular result? Then I want you to disrupt this flow. I want you to disrupt it so that your number one becomes a number two, your two becomes number four, and see how you can still use that change of flow and still arrive at the same result and even better. You find out that these people, no matter the situation or the circle you put them, they're still able to deliver and even surpass expectations because they have been able to disrupt and able to update their performance memory. So these two keys are so important for our professionals, especially in these times we live in. Change is coming at a faster pace than we have, always had it before. And only people who are resilient enough and who can adapt will remain in their businesses or in their career or even move up on their career ladder. So, I mean, it's so important. I mean, I
Wow.
look forward to the other response of other speakers.
So we should be updating our performance memory, right? Is that one that is very important? We
Very
have to
important. Very important.
constantly, we have to constantly disrupt the process. Like, okay, this worked last year. Well, okay, what can I do to rejig it? We have to
Look,
consistently.
even the internet has taught us how to disrupt and update our performance memory. Those days, it
Okay.
used to be as simple as go to your Yahoo, put in your username, put in your password, and you are in. Now there has been a disruption. Why? Because of seen and unforeseen security threats. Because of this, now we now have the advent of two-step verification process. We now have the advent of using your phones to verify. We now have the advent of confirming that you're not a robot. Why are all this in place? Is because so that we are constantly updating performance memory, so that in case there is a change, we are still able to deliver. There are people, see, listen, there are people that because they were not able to update, what happens that when the internet says, oh, go and verify from your phone, what they are stuck. I mean, at a point, my mom had to call me and say, I don't know what's happening. Maybe they've hacked my phone. I said, no, they are just telling that these days you can't even just log in directly. You have got to use third party verification platforms and things. What are they trying to teach us? That in the advent of the activities of a VUCA world, people must be adaptive ready. People must update their performance memory. People must be sure that they can deliver when change comes. And that's the whole process of building resilience in the world that we live in.
Wow. So we have to keep updating our performance memory. We have to
Yes,
have a
disrupt ourselves
proactive,
constantly.
correct personal disruption process.
I call it
Proactive
I, I call it PDP, proactive disruption
PDP.
plan.
I need to write that down.
What is your
Proactive.
PDP for 2024?
What's your PDP for 2024? I think that's the take home from today's
This
edition of
this this
this.
webinar is a PDP, because when you
Okay.
attend this kind of webinar, you are disrupting your
Yes.
mental state. It's a PDP,
Wow. So it's a personal disruption
disruption
process.
plan.
Wow. Personal disruption plan. So everybody, every professional needs to have a personal disruption plan. So I think the takeaway from this conversation today, which I see that even though Iko and Carol have been playing with, is that we all need personal disruption plans. We need to consistently disrupt our performance memory. We need to update it consistently. So the way, I mean, whatever worked for us last year would may not work for us this year. With the way the world is moving, the world has become very volatile. I mean, who could have thought in December 2019 that the whole of 2020 we would be indoors and we would be forced to work from home. I mean, who could have thought that working from home would be a thing? Who could have thought that, you can actually run an entire business without renting an office? Who could have thought about all of this in 2019? So our performance memory have to be consistently updated. We have to keep, updating our performance memory. We have to have a personal disruption plan. I've written it down. A personal disruption plan. So the take home for today, for everyone that joined us and whoever is going to watch this replay, is you need a personal disruption plan. The best way to adopt the adaptive principles in this volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and very disruptive world is to have a personal disruption plan. You have to consistently update your performance memory. The performance memory you had last year, in fact, the performance memory you had last month, may not necessarily serve you this month. It may not necessarily serve you next month. The world is consistently changing. And so that you're not left behind, so you're not consistently or constantly trying to catch up, you have to update your performance memory over and over again, and create that personal disruption plan. Like, okay, so if this happens, what am I going to do? It's like, what I mean, nobody knew that the national grid was going to collapse on Monday, but it collapsed yesterday, and this had to go on. So it's almost like I had a personal disruption plan in place. Like, okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to make sure that this still goes on regardless. So I want to thank all the speakers for showing up today. I know today is a public holiday in Nigeria, and I have perhaps taken some of your time. That's a rest time. But I mean, look at the bright side. You're still going to have a 4-day work week next week now, because we are not going to work on Monday too. So I mean, you're going to catch up on the rest. So it's all good. But thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for giving me part of your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for the new things that you have taught us. Thank you for those things that seem very vague and very esoteric that we have broken down. And I think the take home for me is that adaptive principles apply to every professional. Every professional can apply them, and the world is consistently changing. And I mean, with the way the world has changed in the last 10 years, right? I think it's even faster in the last couple of years. The last 4 years, it's been very fast. Things are moving so fast, it's almost unbelievable. And we have heard about so many disruptions in the workplace. There are so many layoffs in all parts of the world. There's economic disruption everywhere. Every nation on earth is feeling something. There's something going on everywhere. And as professionals, whether you are a business owner or you are self-employed or you are entrepreneur or you are an entrepreneur, like Carol would like to call them, right? You need to have a personal disruption plan. You need to consistently update your performance memory. The world is going through it's like he's on a wheel, that hamster wheel that doesn't stop. We're just going. We don't know when the next disruption is going to happen. And it's almost impossible to think that nothing will change. I mean, I'm almost, in fact, looking forward to the next type of phones that we're going to be using, because like 10 years ago, we didn't have touchscreen phones. We just had those phones that had buttons. QT, what they call that, a keypad. QWERTY. That was the keypad there. But now I don't know how people use those kind of phones. I don't know. People that still use it, I don't know how they cope. But then I'm already thinking, so now that we have used touchscreen phones, what kind of phones are we going to use next? Maybe phones that we press from our hand. Like, there's not going to be a phone, like you are not going to see it 3D. You're not going to be pressing the thing from your hand. And we already are beginning to see stuff like that, because you have wristwatches that you can take your calls from without your phone being in your hand, right? You have those kind of wristwatches now. So you have to build a personal disruption plan. You have to consistently tell yourself that yesterday's version of Kola, Carol, Mo is not going to be sufficient for tomorrow. If you're going to thrive, if you're going to stay at the top in this new world of work, you need a personal disruption plan. And you need to apply adaptive leadership principles. You have to be resilient, you have to be agile, you have to be adaptive, you have to continuously, you have to subscribe to continuous learning. You have to be a lifelong learner. Nothing must be too difficult for you to learn. I mean, the easiest things are actually difficult for me, right? But you see those complex things, those are the things that interest me. Like, how can I remove something on Canva? You know, somebody just said she's looking forward to the phones that will read our minds. I mean, honestly, because sometimes when I'm using Chat GPT and when I put in the prompt and it gives me a response, I'm like, is this thing in my head? Did you know that that's what I wanted to say? It's almost crazy now. So we need to constantly disrupt our minds. We need to constantly disrupt your plan. Like, your plan should not be cast in stone anymore. So you say, okay, I want to be this by the end of the year. My dear, please be ready to disrupt that plan, because you might need to take so many routes to get there, or even one route to get there. But what you must not do is to be stuck in one place and insist that you can only do it one way, because the world is volatile, is uncertain, is complex. It has become ambiguous and very disruptive. And the only answer from what we have learned today is to have a personal disruption plan, consistently update your performance memory, adopt adaptive leadership principles so that you can not only survive this new world of work, but thrive and be a top performer. Thank you so much for showing up today. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Accelerate Your Career Growth webinar series. Until next quarter, when I come again, I remain yours sincerely, Bukola Shewolorotuga, and they call me Coach BSO. But remember, that's my alter ego. This is not me. Have a great day and bye for now.